And welcome back to the morning show. Coming up on 6:50, it's Wednesday. That means Wise Guy time. Matt Sellon, our U of I physics professor, is here talking about future gen coming to Mattoon. And folks may not know what's all involved in this. You're going to give us a little lesson on CO2, gasification, all that good stuff.
Right. So I'm not a real expert on the chemistry of this stuff or about future gen, but I spent some time reading up on it yesterday, so now I can pretend I'm an expert.
Very good.
But you know, it is pretty interesting stuff, and there is some physics involved in this. And so let me just burn a match. Normally when you burn something, okay, you start with a hydrocarbon. In this case, it's a piece of wood.
Sure. And
you produce energy. In this case, it's a flame and heat, which you could use to heat something up. And then what you have left over is this black char, you know, sort of leftover stuff. And if you smell it, sometimes it's a little stinky too, and you see it, okay? And so the burning process, basically, typically you start with a hydrocarbon. You produce energy, and you produce some volatile gases, and you produce CO2.
Okay.
Okay? And the volatile gases you can sort of deal with. The stuff that's left over, the ash, you can sort of deal with. Okay? The CO2 is a little more difficult to deal with, and it's a ubiquitous problem. Human beings produce it too. Okay? So we eat food. That's a hydrocarbon. We process this food to give us energy so we can run around and do fun things. And we produce CO2, which we just breathe out.
Right.
And we produce ash. You know, we won't talk about that part.
Well, sure, yeah, we know where that comes from.
Right, that comes out the other end. And so, so usually that's in the burning process, that's what happens. And so the CO2, though, is a greenhouse gas. And it's known that in addition to things like methane and water vapor, which are also in the atmosphere, the CO2 is sort of bad in that too much of it keeps heat in. And so it can change the climate of the world, and people are very worried about this sort of thing right now. And so the trick to producing energy is to try to do it in such a way that you don't emit a lot of carbon, a lot of CO2.
Right. Okay.
And so what future gen is going to do is they're going to do something called coal gasification, which essentially is not so different from burning a match, except it's done, of course, in a very clever way.
Right.
And you produce, along the way, you produce hydrogen gas, which is part of, President Bush's hydrogen economy that we're working towards. And the hydrogen is going to be burned, and that's going to generate electricity. And the CO2 which is produced in this coal gasification is going to, instead of just be emitted into the atmosphere, which is what happens right now in all the other power plants, is going to be pumped down a hole.
Okay.
Okay? And so what you do is you put the CO2 under really high pressure, probably 70, 80 times normal atmospheric pressure, and it becomes a very interesting stuff called a supercritical liquid. And this liquid, you pump down a big hole that you've drilled into the earth, maybe 3,000 feet below Mattoon. And there it just sort of sits. And it's, you might think, well, doesn't it leak out and so on? But no, all the time we know that high-pressure gases are inside the earth because oil and gas that we take out and we burn are stuck down there. So this is a very stable situation. And Mattoon was chosen, I believe, because they're pumping it right down below the site right there. They don't have to pipeline and stuff down. They have a very good rock formation for this sort of thing. And so the carbon dioxide sequestration, which is what it's called, is the key to the whole project, and that's what makes this whole future gen thing different from other power plants.
Oh, very good.
And when we come back, I have a bunch of CO2 inside this aquarium, and I'm going to show some really neat demos that actually people can do at home as well, because you can get CO2 from vinegar and baking soda, just like I can get it here.
Well, Matt Sellon with the history lesson. We appreciate that this morning.
Well, thank you.
Maybe we're more informed now on what's going to happen at future gen. You can teach history now, too, maybe.
As far as you know.
Yeah, as far as I know. It sounds good to me. All right. Thanks, Matt. Well, if you have any questions or suggestions for Matt, you can send them to themorningshow@wcia.com or his very own spiffy website, wiseguy.net. It is 6:53. Let's check in with Amber Jenny.